Today, I wanted to talk about the Game Changers list, the recent expansion to it, and just give my overall thoughts and impressions on what the best in class are for each color for each of the Game Changers. But first, I wanted to show off recent card order that I got in. Some Braids Cabal Minion. I snapped these up right after the unbanning in Commander, like 25 cents each. The card within hours shot up to like $5, and then of course everybody went through their collections and pulled out all their copies and listed them, so the price quickly dropped from $5 back down to $2, which is where it's at right about now. But still, going from 25 cents to $2, not bad. So I grabbed a little position of this. And see, Braids was like, I remember playing back in Odyssey Block was when I first started, when Judgment came out in 2002, and so I remember Braids when it was a brand new card. And of course it was banned in Commander in like 2009, right around the time I started playing Commander. So I've never had a chance to play with Braids before in Commander. So as soon as it became unbanned, one of the first things I did was put in my Marin of Clan Neltoth deck, and we'll see how it does in there. But it's fun to play with Braids again after all these years. So I'm very happy to see that come off the ban list. But going from one list to another, let's talk about Game Changers. So when Game Changers first started, it was 40 cards, and me and a lot of other people were pointing out, oh, what about this card? What about this card? And there's so many cards that we felt that were left off the list. And then, in answer to our questions, they put another 20 or so cards on the list. And so now, I think we've got too much. Like, I thought 40 was about right. I could have maybe seen going up to 50. But 60, 61 plus cards, I think, is getting untenable. And I think a lot of these cards can be just removed off the Game Changers list without issue. I think that things like Coalition, Victory, Sway the Stars can go off. You've got other cards that were banned and taken off the ban list, like Protein Hulk, and they're not Game Changers. So I don't think that just because a card gets taken off the ban list should mean it automatically gets put onto the Game Changers list. I think I think it makes sense in theory, but I just don't think you always want to do it. And I think it's quite telling that of the cards that were recently unbanned in Commander, it's like practically none of them are listed as Game Changers. But when I look at things like Coalition Victory, like Sway the Stars, I think that those could both come off really easily because they're kind of alternate win cons, and I don't think they're going to be widely adopted. Now, I guess that begs the question, if they were taken off the Game Changers list, would people play them more? Because it's like, well, I don't want to put Sway the Stars in my deck if that's going to count as one of my 3 Game Changers in order to be a bracket 3. But then you look, now it's no longer a Game Changer. I could just throw it in just because. And so I see why they would add more Game Changers to the list, because they really want to make you think about it. They want you to just throw in every powerful, best-in-class card in your 5-color deck and run, 10 to 15 Game Changers and still call it bracket 3. They want you to really sweat and figure out, well, which 3 am I going to pick for my deck. I think that most of the legendary creatures, the Commanders, Yuriko, Winota, Kinnan, and all the others, I think that they can come off just because they're not nearly as oppressive in the 99 as they are in the command zone. I think that's a big difference. So I think if somebody is bringing a Winota Joan Forces deck, you kind of know what to expect. It doesn't matter if she's a Game Changer or not. Like, she's a commander, and people say, oh, I don't want to play against Winota, she's too explosive, snowballs out of control. And then that solves the issue right there, because that's one of the main things about the Game Changers. People are sitting down, and they have certain expectations for how the game's going to go, what the game's power level is going to be. And I don't think people are going to be as upset with a Winota in the 99 of a deck compared to one where she's leading, and the whole goal is to get her out as quickly as possible. So yeah, I think most of these commanders could come out, even ones like Vorinclex, which it's already mass land denial. His ability itself, it's just like Blood Moon. You're not going to play Blood Moon in a bracket 3 or below deck just because you're denying people access to their mana, their resources. That's why you don't have Winter Orb or Armageddon listed as a Game Changer, because it's mass land denial. Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger, same way. I think it should be off the Game Changers list for that reason. Even something like Tergrid, God of Fright, I mean, she's very miserable to play against, whether she's in the command zone or in the 99, because you put Tergrid's in the same vein as Opposition Agent and Notion Thief and Narset Parter Veils, as part of the whole we're going to punish the Necrosar decks. We're going to punish the wheel decks, and saying that you can play all your wheel effects. We're not going to put Time Twister, which is a power 9. We're not going to put that on the Game Changers list. We're not going to put Wheel of Fortune on the Game Changers list. You can have those, but anything that punishes your opponents for drawing extra cards or prevents them from drawing extra cards and gives you a benefit instead, we're going to put all those on the Game Changers list. So you can have everybody draw cards, but we're going to severely limit the number of ways you have to hurt people for drawing cards, which is why I play a Xyrus deck. And that way, you're not punishing people for drawing extra cards, you're punishing people with Purphoros when you do a wheel, and all of a sudden, they're taking over 40 damage, because you just made everybody draw 7 cards, and you got Purphoros and play, create a ton of snakes, and boom, the whole table's gone. So that's why I play Xyrus, is because you're not punishing them for drawing cards, you're punishing them for creating tokens. So Xyrus was not impacted by a lot of these ways to hurt the wheel decks, so I was able to get around that one. But what I really want to focus on with this one is talking about the different colors and the game changers and what I think are the best in class for each of the game changers. Because you got a limited number of slots. Let's say you're playing mono white. You've got 3 options for game changers. And then, of course, there's colorless ones too. But I did want to start with white and talk about what I feel are the best in class. And like for me personally, I like Teferi's Protection. I like the whole feel being able to protect yourself from pretty much everything for a turn. It is just a panic button. It's a get out of jail free card type situation. You can just avoid whatever somebody's trying to do, whether they're trying to combo out, win the game, or whatever. You can just say, nope, you get everybody else out. I'll wait here till you're done, and then we'll get back around to my turn and see where we are from there. So I really like Teferi's Protection. I don't think it's the best, though, in terms of what game changers mean to me. I think that the number one has to go to Smothering Tithe. Smothering Tithe is the enchantment to where whenever another player draws a card, you're creating a treasure token, which, again, is another thing that gets a lot better when you've got a Wheel of Fortune in play. But Smothering Tithe is one of those cards that really deserves to be the top pick over Teferi's Protection. It really alters the flow of the game. Teferi's Protection is like a one-time thing. It exiles itself, so you're not going to keep looping it or getting it back with Eternal Witness or anything. But Smothering Tithe sticks around, and not every deck is able to deal with enchantments, and especially red decks, and black decks couldn't either up until recently when they started giving black the option to get rid of enchantments, which I think was a mistake, but that's a whole topic for a whole other video. I like Smothering Tithe at number 1 because it really it's like Rhystic Study. It impacts how people play the game, and you're just going to continue to accrue value every turn until it's dealt with. And it just incentivizes everybody else at the table. Like, we've got to take out that Smothering Tithe. He's just going to get so much money, he's going to run away with the game. So yeah, it's like if you are in white and you're deciding which game changer are you going to get the most bang for your buck or the most bang for your slot in your deck, I would say Smothering Tithe. And then Teferi's Protection. And then third, I'd put Enlightened Tutor, because it's a 1-mana tutor. In the worst case scenario, it's a second copy of your Soul Ring if you want to get that out. But most decks have plenty of other artifacts and enchantments that are worth getting. I remember one time where I used Enlightened Tutor turn 1 to fetch up the land tax in my mono white deck, and it's just a great source of card advantage if you've got the tools in your deck to pull it out. So yeah, I would say that Enlightened Tutor gets the nod at number 3 there. So I'll do number 1, Smothering Tithe, number 2, Teferi's Protection, and number 3, Enlightened Tutor. I think the other ones, the Drannith Magistrate, Serra's Sanctum, and Humility, they either require they're a little more niche, you have to build around them a little more, or in the case of Drannith Magistrate, which is also a card I really do like and ran it in a lot more decks before the Game Changers list came out. I kind of took it out because I was like, well, it is kind of fun to just force all of your opponents to play at a little slower pace, and then they got to dig and find a solution for this, because the Drannith Magistrate so becomes a lightning rod for removal and protects all of your other stuff. But it's better at like higher power tables, and I think at that point you're not really worried about game changes as much anymore. And in the areas where game changes are concerned, I don't think Drannith Magistrate's going to make the cut most of the time when you've got the option between that or, say, Smothering Tithe and Teferi's Protection. And again, that's taking price into account. And I think that most of these game changers are pretty expensive. Like, I have Teferi's Protection in most of my white decks, and I only have Smothering Tithe in one of them. I only have it in my mono white deck because it is an artifact deck and cares explicitly about artifacts. If I had more Smothering Tithe, would I run them in more of my decks? Probably. I'd probably find room. It's just that much of an advantage. But for right now, I've just got the one Smothering Tithe, so I just stick to it in the one deck there. But if I had more, I'd probably run more. I'd probably make room for it. It was just easier for me to make room for Teferi's Protection. But I think overall, Smothering Tithe is the better of the white game changers. Blue was interesting to go down because blue has more game changers than any other color on the list, and so narrowing them down, it wasn't that hard because a lot of the later additions to the blue game changer list, like Urza, Lord High Artificer, which again I think is another one that could probably come off the game changers list. I think it's only a problem in bracket 3 if it's your commander. I think if it's in the 99 of some Artifact Matters deck, it's not nearly as bad. But things like Urza Lord High Artificer or things like Thassa's Oracle, those don't rank high on the game changers, even though they technically, I thought Thassa's Oracle is one of the best win cons in the game, hardest to interact with. But I didn't put it on there because in my mind those aren't really game changers. Those are like optimized. Those are bracket 4, bracket 5 cards. Like I wouldn't even consider them game changers per se. I'd say if you're running Thassa's Oracle, your deck should probably not be a 3 unless it's part of a Merfolk tribal deck. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, factoring that in. Same thing with Gifts Ungiven, Intuition. I think those are going to be big in CEDH, but they did not rank high on my list of game changers because I consider those more CEDH or optimized, combo tutor cards. So I kind of had them lower on the list of the best in class game changers in blue because I'm just looking at cards that by themselves do a lot and can just help to elevate. And so of course, obvious number one pick is Rhystic Study. It's the original. It is the it's the blue Smothering Tithe, or be more accurate, it's Smothering Tithe is the white Rhystic Study. That is the card that has just become a meme. It's the did you pay the one? It is. I'll go out and say it's not very fun to play against, and a lot of people will make mistakes and just give people cards, but Rhystic Study really just needs to be that tax on the table, and you just don't give them any extra cards. Don't give them any extra cards, and just everybody's just paying one more for all their spells until you can find a removal to get it off the table. But all it takes is one player who wants to get greedy and wants to play multiple spells and use all their mana, and they're just going to give you so many cards, and the value, you're just going to run away with the game until it is dealt with. So yeah, Rhystic Study is an easy number one slot for the blue game changer. Second place, I'd put it Cyclonic Rift. I mean, it has lost a little of its luster given all of the ways of how phasing out has come more and more into prominence. It's not as much of an automatic I win card as it once was, in that you're not always resetting everybody back to square one while you have a full board. So yeah, I think that Cyclonic Rift is number 2. I wouldn't say it's as close as it once was. I think Rhystic Study is definitely better. And again, you'll note the pattern between white and blue is that you've got a permanent that gives you reward for your opponents taking game actions like drawing cards or playing spells, and you get treasure tokens or cards, respectively. And then the second place is something that either protects your team or just removes everybody else's thing. So it's a one-time use thing. And then for third place, I went ahead and put Fierce Guardianship, but this is where it's going to kind of show my personal feelings of it because, again, as I mentioned before, I don't put any of the free if you control your commander cards in my deck. I just felt that was a bridge too far. I don't really like a lot of free spells anyways. I think that when you're tapped out, it should give your opponents some measure of confidence that they'll be able to get away with what they want to do. Like Pact of Negation, to me, Pact of Negation is a fair, free counterspell. And so I would put Fierce Guardianship on there, even though I personally would not play it in any of my blue decks. Force of Will could go on there as well, but again, that's another free counter. It's more card disadvantage, but again, that feels more fair than, say, Fierce Guardianship, which just feels, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way that those cards are designed. It feels like a play mistake. It feels like, in a similar way that Arcane Signet was a mistake, I feel that the cycle of Fierce Guardianship and Deflecting Swallow also. Design mistake just should not have happened. And yeah, I just won't put him in my decks. But barring those free counters, Fierce Guardianship and Force of Will, I put Mystical Tutor. I think that, again, Enlightened Tutor, Mystical Tutor, I think that just those one drop tutors are just some of the best in class. Puts on the top of your deck, but it can help you get the card you need when you need it. So that's what I would put. I would probably put Rhystic Study, Cyclonic Rift, and then either Fierce Guardianship, Force of Will, or Mystical Tutor for the third slot, depending on your preference. But for me, I would put Mystical Tutor for me. And there's a lot of other ones on there I could talk about. Jin-Gitaxias, I think he should not be on the list. I think if you're playing Jin-Gitaxias in your deck probably shouldn't be a 3 if you're playing to cheat it out early or ramp into it quick or have ways to 2 to 4 get it out there quickly. I think if you're playing a slow, dirtly Praetor Tribal or something, I think he's probably fine. It all just depends. Full disclosure, I had a Talrand deck for a while, which is like Talrand Polymorph, and I did run Jin-Gitaxias in there because the whole goal was to use Mystical Tutor to help you find your Polymorph card, so you could cast Polymorph targeting one of your Drakes, and then there's only like one creature in the 99, so you're guaranteed like flip into Jin-Gitaxias, and then at that point you've got Jin-Gitaxias on turn 4, 5, or 6, whatever it is, and then you're just locking down the table, and people either have a removal or they don't. So if you're doing something like that, yeah, your deck probably should not be at a 3. And I guess, needless to say, once it went on the Game Changer list, I was like, well, I'll cut Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur, because you can run any number of other big creatures that you can polymorph into that aren't going to get quite the same level of hate as Jin-Gitaxias is. But that's really all I have to say about blue, other than I do think that Consecrated Sphinx being on the Game Changers list feels like a mistake. It feels like it's too old. Like, Consecrated Sphinx is not the powerhouse that it once was. It feels like the format has gotten too fast for that card to keep up. I mean, if you were playing a 6-drop that does not have an immediate effect, how many of those still get played in the format? It feels like something has to do something immediately or have some ability that has an immediate impact on the game to even be considered. And I think that dropping this down for 6 and just crossing your fingers and hoping somebody doesn't have instant removal. I mean, yes, you can get into shenanigans where people can copy it, and then suddenly you're deal making and 2 people are drawing out their decks. But I don't know. I don't think that Consecrated Sphinx is even worth it. Like, I used to run it in my Xerus deck, but I haven't in a while. But that's really all I have on blue. For black, black was interesting because it was a discussion between Bolas's Citadel or Necropotence. And I'm in the camp of Bolas's Citadel. And here's my reasoning behind that. Is because, like, what's a card that's famously banned in Commander? Yawgmoth's Bargain, aka J.D. Vance's favorite card. So yeah, Yawgmoth's Bargain is banned in Commander because it is basically a 6-mana Necropotence. The only difference is it gives you the cards right away instead of at the end of turn. And so, yeah, it's banned. It's too good. And Griselbrand does something similar for 8 mana, and it is also banned. And so you've got those 2 cards, Yawgmoth's Bargain and Griselbrand. Both give you the cards right away. And Bolas's Citadel, for me, gets the nod over Necropotence because you're trading life for card draw, and you can also trade life to cheap mana costs. Now, if you combo Bolas's Citadel with Sensei's Divining Top, now those 2 cards, you've built your own Yawgmoth's Bargain because you're paying the 1 life to cast top from the top of your deck, using top to draw a card, putting top back on top, and keep paying 1 life. And so not only are you getting Yawgmoth's Bargain, but you're also triggering any cast abilities, anything having to do with playing artifacts, permanents leaving the battlefield. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with a Bolas's Citadel. And that's why, for me, it gets the nod as the top spot. But I can easily see the argument being made for Necropotence. With Bolas's Citadel, if you just reveal a land and you've already played a land, well, you're kind of stuck unless you have, Sensei's Divining Top again, or some sort of top deck manipulation to to get rid of that. So it is a chance that you can be stopped. Whereas with Necropotence, the only limit is really your life total and how much life are you willing to spend. Because you can play Necropotence on turn 3 and then just draw 39 cards, looking for the ones you really want, and you don't care about what happens to the rest of them. So yeah, Necropotence has a lot of advantages as well, and I could easily see it going one way or the other. But for me, I do like Bolas' Citadel. I think that, technically speaking, Necropotence probably is the better card. It's better on its own. It's better at refilling your hand each turn. So yeah, it has a lot going for it. Speaking of somebody who like really likes playing out of the graveyard, though, I don't like a lot of the drawbacks on Necropotence. And so for me, Bolas' Citadel is the pick, but I can totally see somebody preferring Necropotence and making that the number one and swapping him. And then for the third one, I mean, you've got your pick. You've got Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Imperial Seal. I think Demonic Tutor probably gets the nod just because it's the classic one, you know? And it puts the card right into your hand. It's Demonic Tutor, just whatever card you need at that moment, plus 2 mana. And you get it right away. I think that works out great. But the Vampiric Tutor, Imperial Seal have their advantages if you have anything that cares about top deck manipulation, especially if you're playing like with big creatures. Again, going back to Yuriko, Tiger Shadow, anything that cares about high mana value stuff, those are good. But really, past that, I don't think there's anything I would pick. And some of the other ones, like Ad Nauseam, I mean, it's no doubt, it is a very powerful card, but that one you have to build your deck in a very specific way to take full advantage of it. And also, if you're playing Ad Nauseam in your deck, that's another one that could probably go off the list. Who is putting Ad Nauseam in a bracket 3 deck? What is your game plan? You know, Ad Nauseam is like a fully optimized, you're going for like a combo win or something. I would not put Ad Nauseam in the bracket changes list. Just have it be pretty much understood. If you're playing Ad Nauseam in your deck, I mean, maybe that's what the game changer list is for. It's like Ad Nauseam's here just as a signpost to let people know, hey, if you're playing Ad Nauseam in your deck, you know, we're watching you, on you, right? So that I could see why. I don't know who is putting Ad Nauseam in their bracket 3 decks. Probably not many. But I mean, if it's got to be on here as a game changer, I guess. I just feel the game changers list should be shrunken down, and it should only contain cards you actually expect to see people play at bracket 3. And then maybe massage something to where you've got cards that aren't banned, but they're not on the game changers list. I mean, just like how we have it for Winter Orb and a lot of those stacks pieces and mana denial effects. Just find some way to put cards like Ad Nauseam on there. Put things like Thassa's Oracle on there, maybe. I don't know. But see, Thassa's Oracle is one of those things that has application. You could put it in a Merfolk deck. I don't know what you're putting Ad Nauseam in if you're not trying to break the card. But that's really all I have to say about black. Red, this is going to be quick. Red only has 4 game changers on the list, which I think really speaks to Red's station in terms of power level and commander. But easy one, you got Jeska's Will first. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's like the best one you've got. Deflecting Swat is number 2. And then Gamble as number 3. Underworld Breach is the only other one. And I think it's funny that whereas white, blue, and black all have powerful enchantments or artifacts, like Smothering Tide, Rhystic Study, Necropotence, you know, red doesn't really have any permanents that stick around. And Underworld Breach does not count because it comes down as an enchantment, but you've got 1 turn for it. It's basically, you know, Yawgmoth's Will in red, which, come to think of it, Yawgmoth's Will is not a game changer. How does that make sense? Not that I'm advocating for adding more to the game changers. I think there's too many already, but if Yawgmoth's Will is not a game changer, why is Underworld Breach? I don't know. But yeah, you've got those 4, and there's really not much to say beyond that. I mean, should he Gamble, Underworld Breach even be game changers? Because I get that they are putting most of the 1 mana tutors on there, but I don't know, Gamble just seems so much worse than every other tutor. I get that you can turn the downside into an upside if you care about things being in your graveyard. It doesn't really matter if you were hoping it gets discarded in the first place. But at that point, it's basically red Entomb, and Entomb is also not a game changer. So, again, I talked about how we had so many more added to it, and already I'm finding several black cards that could be added to it, but I'm not necessarily advocating for that. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy. But yeah, as somebody who has a mono red deck and a Rakdos deck, like, I debated putting any game changes in at all, and ultimately decided just to take them out. Now, I don't necessarily consider these decks bracket 2 decks, and even though they technically are, I've really tried to, you know, maximize the synergies with them as my Norin the Wary deck and Rakdos Lord of Riots, and those are actually my 2 oldest decks I've had since I started playing Commander back in 2009. Well, no, I didn't have the Rakdos then. I had Norin the Wary, but Rakdos, when he was printed in 2012, he became the new commander for my Rakdos deck. But yeah, those two decks have been around, with me the longest, and I think it's funny that those are the 2 that aren't running any game changers. And I think it's a testament to how long I've had the decks, how every card has worked hard to find its place in there, to the point where in both of these decks, there's only like a handful of cards that can move around. I can swap one thing out here or there, but for the vast majority of the cards, they're all pretty much locked in place. And so I think it's funny that those decks are so old that they sort of predate the game changers. And of course, for a while I was running like Jeska's Will in Norin, but there's really not as big a need to do it. And like, I would rather run no game changers in those decks than just run 1 or 2. Because again, I've got the mentality of it feels like you're leaving money on the table. If you are a bracket 3 deck, but you're not running the full suite of 3 game changers, it just feels like, well, I can run up to 3. I might as well run 3. And so I don't want to run just Jeska's Will in the Norin deck and have it be a bracket 3. But at the same time, it is technically bracket 2, but would I feel comfortable playing against precons with it? I mean, it's going to be stronger than a precon, so that makes it, does that make it bracket 3 with or without game changers? Maybe. I mean, the rules are a little fuzzy. But that's pretty much all I've got to say about red and that. I feel like red is lacking in terms of power, and I'm wondering if the game changers are going to be like a wake-up call for design development. And they're going to think, we need, they're going to say, we need a red Rhystic Study, we need a red Smothering Tithe, we need the red equivalent of an enchantment that comes down and gives you incremental benefit over the course of the game when your opponents, take a specific action or do a specific thing on their turns. I don't know. I don't know if that's coming. I don't know if that'd be good for the game. But right now, red is really lacking compared to the other colors when it comes to game changers. As for green, though, green is interesting because it had some of the fewest game changers before, and had so many more added to it this time. For me, the standout one, Seedborn Muse. Like, Seedborn Muse has just been a classic staple of the format. It turns out that the only thing you need to do to get it banned is to add blue and give you the ability to play spells as though they had flash, and then that's all it takes to go from being a game changer Seedborn Muse to being a banned Prophet of Kruphix. So I think Seedborn Muse definitely earns that title, especially if you are able to combine it with Vedalken Orrery or other effects to grant flash to your spells. So yeah, I think Seedborn Muse, it's basically you're taking a turn during everybody else's turn when you can do that, when you can untap and play spells. So yeah, I think Seedborn Muse definitely earns its place as a game changer. And Gaea's Cradle, I mean, that's one of those things, it's one of the most proxied cards in the format. People just want to run it in their decks. But I don't know how I feel about putting a land that taps for green as a green game changer. I mean, it technically, you're running it in green decks. But I don't know. You could count that one or not. Next, I'd say like Survival of the Fittest. It is one of those things that's on the reserve list, has not been printed in a while, and it is really hard to get. And I really haven't seen it all that much. I don't know if it is as widely adopted, but I'm just speaking in terms of power. I think that is one of the more powerful ones. We're talking about a repeatable tutor on an enchantment. And I think that is just going to help you find your combo pieces. It is very powerful. And put Worldly Tutor up there as well. That was another one of the tutors that got added. Things like Natural Order and Crop Rotation, those are also tutors, are also strong. but I don't think Natural Order is stronger than Survival of the Fittest. And Food Chain, that's another one of those cards that is on the Game Changers list, but I really don't think it should be. I think that if you're playing Food Chain in your deck, you're trying to do something broken with it. You're trying to do something unfun, unfair. Now that's going in the optimized list. I don't see anybody doing anything with a Food Chain at a bracket 3 level that's going to feel fair, So I think that one should probably just come off the Game Changers list. Again, they just need to find something to put Food Chain into, some classification that can put it in the same camp as Winter Orb and all those other effects. But yeah, I'd go Seaborn Muse and then Survival of the Fittest and Worldly Tutor as the top 3. And maybe throw Gaea's Cradle in there somewhere, replace one of them, because there's no doubt Gaea's Cradle is a game changer. It's one of the reasons you need to run targeted land destruction in all of your decks. For multicolored, there's really not a lot. Most of them are commanders, and again, I think most of those commanders should be off the Game Changers list because they're perfectly fine in the 99. Aura Shards is on there, but if Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos are not considered game changers, it's really hard to justify Aura Shards being there. I mean, you have to be in at least 2+ colors to run it. And you also have to have a heavy creature theme, which, is not too hard to come by in Selesnya colors. Those tend to run lots of creatures or tokens anyways. But, I don't know, it can be oppressive. Should it be a game changer? Probably. But again, it feels like, between Entomb, Yawgmoth's Will, Grave Pact, and Dictator Erebos, it seems like I'm just coming up with a list of all of these black cards that should be game changers but aren't. Yeah, it just feels unfair that Aura Shards is on here. It's a really powerful effect, don't get me wrong, and it is probably one of the strongest multicolored cards that's a game changer that you could run in the 99. Without a lot of setup. Notion Thief, you kind of have to build around that to get that to work. And then really, aside from Commanders, the only other multicolored card is Coalition Victory, so there's not a lot of multicolored cards on the Game Changers, which I think fits into the overall theme, because they really want to focus on the monocolors, because it's all about taking the staples, the good stuff that could just go in any white deck, any black deck, and just saying, well, now you got to make a choice. Whereas if you're playing a multicolor card like Aura Shard, you're already making a choice. You're already playing those two colors. It can't just go in every white deck or every green deck. It's only for white and green plus. So it makes sense why there's not a ton of multicolored cards on here. I just question how many of these need to still be on the Game Changer list at all. And then colorless, that's sort of the opposite thing, because you're not talking about cards that can only go multicolors, but colors can literally go in any deck. So how do you determine the best in class there? Well, and this is another one that I don't play with, because I'm not running any Universes Beyond cards in any of my commander decks. It's not like I'm doing any kind of like protest or anything. I'm just not interested in putting Universes Beyond. It's like if they want me to play with it, they'll print an in-universe version, because otherwise I just treat all Universes Beyond products like it's its own separate thing. Like I've got the Warhammer 40k decks. They're fun. I just have the commander decks, and they're unmodified, and they're just kind of there. And you can just play them against each other, play them against other decks. They are slower than, say, most bracket 3 decks, I would say, but that's kind of the intention, I guess. So, yeah, I don't have a problem playing with Universes Beyond. I just don't like them getting mixed with the in-universe Magic sets. So, yeah, if like when Final Fantasy comes out, I'll probably pick up those decks, and then that will be the Final Fantasy Magic crossover game, towards like its own self-contained thing. I just don't want to play singles. Like, I started to do that when Warhammer came out, and quickly realized with the rate at which they were coming out with Universes Beyond product, I was like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with this. And so, yeah, I quickly removed all the Warhammer cards I had put into my commander decks. I was like, this is untenable. I can't do this. And so now, ironically, Magic has like doubled their release schedule since when I started playing. When I started playing, you'd get like 3-4 sets a year. You could have like a 3-set block, and then you'd have a core set during the summer. But now they're getting to where they're doing like, 8 sets a year or something crazy like that. And half of them are Universes Beyond. And it's like, well, if I just ignore the Universes Beyond stuff and just focus only on in-universe Magic sets, well, hey, now we're back to the release schedule they had when I started playing, and then I don't feel so bad. So yeah, so that's my whole thing, is if I am interested in it, I'll engage with the Universes Beyond, but for the most part, like for picking up singles, I don't even acknowledge it. I just pretend like it's its own separate other game, different card back in my mind, and it just happens to have the same rules as Magic. So, with all that being said, the One Ring. That is the best colorless option as far as game changers go. It does so much. Honestly, I couldn't tell you what all it does off the top of my head because, again, it's from the Lord of the Rings set, and I don't take the time to learn Universe of Beyond cards like I do regular Magic cards. I just know it's powerful. And whenever somebody plays it against me, my thought process is, well, we gotta get it off the table. So, yeah, the One Ring, I think it's pretty undisputed that can go in any deck. Any deck will be made better by including it. Really not much to say other than that. And the next couple of ones are colorless. They can go in any deck, but they're lands. And so, to me, this is like the easiest gimme ever. You have Field of the Dead and Ancient Tomb. And so Field of the Dead, it's kind of interesting operating on different axes. Field of the Dead, you want to play that in decks with lots of colors. You want this to be one of the only colorless lands you're running in your 4 or 5 color deck. Because then you're guaranteed to hit the Field of the Dead stipulation of having a certain number of lands in play in order to get the effect. With Ancient Tomb, it's sort of the opposite. It can go in any deck, but the more colors you're running, the less colors lands you're going to be running anyways. That being said, I ran Ancient Tomb in all of my decks, and I had 1, 2, 3 color decks, and all of them got an Ancient Tomb in them just because I liked it. It gave me that little bit of boost. It's like you draw it, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm a turn ahead of everybody else, kind of. But again, once they upped the Game Changer list from 40 to 60, then suddenly all my decks that had 3 Game Changers in it suddenly had like 4 or 5. And at that point, I needed to make some cuts. And as I mentioned in a previous video, Ancient Tomb was one of the easiest cuts to make. And so, again, if you weren't going to count the lands, Field of the Dead and Ancient Tomb as colorless Game Changers, I'd say go with Mana Vault or Grim Monolith, since Mana Crypt was banned, Jeweled Lotus was banned, then Grim Monolith and Mana Vault are some of the best mana accelerants in the game currently. And that's really where I see it. Again, I think a lot of the colorless cards on here could probably be cut. Things like Mishra's Workshop, Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. I don't ever see those. Do they get played by some people? Sure. Is it a question of, well, if we don't put Mishra's Workshop and Tabernacle on, I don't know. I don't see what the point is of putting stuff on the Game Changer list that isn't a big problem. Like, if they're doing it for the sake of consistency, fine. But I don't think the list needs to be as big as it is. But that's basically what it comes down to. So just a quick summary here as we're getting into it. But yeah, for me, Smothering Tithe, Teferi's Protection, Enlightened Tutor are the best for white. Blue, Rhystic Study, Cyclonic Rift, Mystical Tutor for blue. And then black, Bolas' Citadel, Necropotence, and Demonic Tutor. Jessica's Will, Deflecting Swat, and Gamble for red. For green, Seaborn Muse, Survival of the Fittest, and Worldly Tutor. And then you could throw Gaia's Cradle in there, swap it out with one of those 2 lower ones. Multicolored, there's really not a lot of options. But yeah, Aura Shards, Notion Thief, and Coalition Victory. But again, that one I don't think she can be on the list at all. And then for colors, the One Ring, and then Field of the Dead, Ancient Tomb. And so when you look at all of those, and you're deciding which ones do I want to run, like for example, my mono red deck, I don't have enough Game Changers I want to run, so I just don't run any. But it's like, if you're running 2 or 3 colors, then all of a sudden you got to pick the Game Changers out of those colors. And some of them will have more synergies with your deck, but just for my money, like if I was running an Esper deck, I would probably be running Smothering Tithe, Rhystic Study, and Necropotence, or Bolas' Citadel. Like I remember my brother used to have a Zur the Enchanter deck, and one of the first things he would always grab would be Necropotence, because it was just that strong of a card. It's like, oh, the first thing, grab Necropotence, and then just draw, fill up my hand. And so I think when you're dealing with trying to keep your deck in the bracket 3, it's tempting to play the ones that are the best in class for all of these different Game Changers. I guess it's the question of what kind of game do you want to have? Do you want to play the best, or do you want to play something like an Opposition Agent, a Drannith Magistrate? What is it that you want to get out of it? I didn't really touch on Crop Rotation, but I think that's just one of those cards on the Game Changers that has less to do with the power of the card itself, but just more of the strategies that it enables, and just because they're trying to be consistent with the 1 mana tutors. In this case, I have tutors it into play. But I don't know, I've gone on for a bit now. I will just say that I do like the game changers. I like the brackets. I think we could probably cut the game changers down to about 50 and be good. Because I would rather not have the game changers be one of these things that escalates up to, oh, here's our 100 card list of game changers that you can run 3 of in your deck. Because to me, at that point, it just feels like too much micromanagement. You're telling all the players, is like, these are the cards you're allowed to have in your deck. And Commander's really just supposed to be, about the community, about what you want to, what your expectations are, what the people you're playing with. And that's really what the bracket system is meant to help facilitate. And I appreciate that. I just don't want it to get to a point of where people are having to, scrutinize their deck list before they go to go play Commander with people. I think that I like the whole thing of saying, hey, if you're playing this particular type of card, if you're playing Armageddon, if you're playing Winter Orb or Blood Moon, those are really not things we expect to see in brackets 1, 2, or 3. Bracket 4 is pretty much what people want to do, play optimized. They don't have to worry about game changers. Play what you want. Play what you want. Don't worry about it. It feels like bracket 3 is a good place to try to be, though. It's just going to require keeping up with the game changers, keeping up with the all the lists and everything. So, I don't know. Originally, when I heard the change to the game changers, I was worried about keeping up with bracket 3. At that point, I was just going to throw up my hands and say, nope, I'm just going to stick with bracket 2 or bracket 4 and not even worry about 3. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, let's try and do 3, because 3 sort of bridges the gap to where you can kind of hang with the 4 decks, and you can kind of hang with the 2 decks. And so it seems like it's worth it to try and keep your deck in that 3 range. And so that's what I'm going to try and do for now, but if they keep adding more and more game changers to the list, I cannot make any promises that I'll be able to do it. We'll have to see. Hopefully, future updates will take some cards off, but for right now, that's where I am. Thank you so much for listening. I'll have more content here in the next little bit. Appreciate it.